What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Cosmic Wonder. I'm your host, Warren Thompson, and we just watched Miss Marvel episode 2, and we're going to break it down, including that ending. Who exactly is this woman that Kamala has been having visions of, and what is she doing in Kamran's car? And are Kamala and Kamran actually related? Could they actually be cousins? And would that mean that Kamala actually was telling the truth when she lied to her brother, slash maybe didn't lie to her brother? We're going to break it all down in this video, including, is Kamran actually Red Dagger? Are we going to see him become Red Dagger in the next few episodes? We're going to break it all down in this video, and of course, if you're new, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest videos. Okay, so the first thing that we have to talk about for Miss Marvel episode 2 is who this woman is that Kamran just casually has in the back of the Porsche when he picks up Kamala Khan to save her. Now, we do know a lot about this character, but at the same time, some things still remain a mystery. However, as usual, gathering all of the information that we know and all of the evidence that we've seen so far, combined with knowledge from Marvel Comics, it looks like we've narrowed it down to who exactly this might be. Now, the actress who plays this character is Nimra Bucha, and the character's name is Najma, and I apologize if I mispronounce some of these names. Now, Najma isn't really a character from Marvel Comics, not exactly at least. But Najma means star, and there is a Marvel character named Star that has deep connections to Captain Marvel. In the comics, Star actually steals Captain Marvel's powers, and this could be what she's trying to do with Kamala Khan now. And big thank you to Paul over at Heavy Spoilers for having this conversation with me when I was trying to brainstorm what was happening here. Now, I do think that it would be interesting if Najma was indeed the villain slash anti-hero Star, because even though they'd have to retcon the character, they could seriously make this work and connect a lot of different things. Specifically, I actually think that they could connect this back to Kamala Khan's great-grandmother. Star's name in the comics, her real name was Ripley Ryan, and she was a reporter who interviewed Captain Marvel slash Carol Danvers for Tony Stark. But then they were attacked by Nuclear Man, and Nuclear Man defeated Captain Marvel and the Avengers but took Ripley hostage. Carol Danvers would go on to save Ripley, and eventually Ripley would volunteer for a Kree experiment, turning humans into Kree hybrids. And Ripley was the only one that survived, but she had no powers. So instead she decided to take them from Captain Marvel, and she created a virus that would then go inside of Carol, go onto her heart, and this would siphon Carol's powers and give them to Ripley. Now, eventually, Carol Danvers kind of ripped out her own heart in order to defeat Ripley. Then she had to rip it out of Ripley's chest as well. That defeated her, and Ripley was taken to the Raft. Now, here's how I think they could actually retcon this story to fit in the MCU. Now, one, obviously, there's going to be some pretty big connections to Captain Marvel in Miss Marvel. I mean, there already have been, but we know that Miss Marvel is going to lead up to the Marvels, which is really Captain Marvel 2. Now, I'm quite sure Najma wants the bangle from Kamala Khan, but I actually question if she had some type of run-in with Kamala's great-grandmother. Throughout episode 2, we found out that she brought shame to Kamala's family. But what if everything isn't exactly what it seems? What if it actually could be Najma's doing? Because we know that she is actually the main villain of Miss Marvel. She has been in some trailers and or TV spots, and we can see that her and Kamala are fighting. And it's pretty much known right now that she's the villain. Her and it looks like 3 other people actually. So what if these people go way back to Pakistan and they ran into Kamala Khan's grandmother and tried to steal the bangle back then, and some bad stuff happened, but instead of them getting blamed for it, Kamala's great-grandmother got blamed for it. And perhaps by the end of this series, we will go on to find out that Kamala's great-grandmother wasn't actually somebody that disgraced her family, but was actually a hero. After all, we did hear the story of Kamala's grandmother and how she made her way back to the train by following a trail of stars. And this was probably her great-grandmother, her grandmother's mother, guiding her back to the train while she had the bangle, which was causing the trail of stars, but then had to go deal with some dangerous situation. Then at some point in time in the history of everything, she managed to get the bangle back to her daughter, which was Kamala's grandmother. I wouldn't be surprised if this is somewhat the story that plays out during the Miss Marvel series, and I'm kind of expecting Kamala's great-grandmother to get some sort of a redemption by the end of this, and I'm betting Najma is behind this so-called disgrace and shame put on Kamala's great-grandmother. And I think this is all actually going to be revealed relatively soon, because I think think that perhaps Najma and her son Kamran are going to be taking Kamala to Pakistan. And here's why I think this. We've actually seen trailers and TV spots that show Kamala in what looks to be Pakistan. And in some of the TV spots, they have actually revealed the character Red Dagger / Kareem. If you take a look at this picture right here, that is from a trailer or a clip that Marvel Studios put out, we can clearly see that this is the Red Dagger. Now, it is possible that they are still in Jersey City. However, in the comics, Red Dagger protects Pakistan. Even though at one time in the comics, he does participate in an exchange student program and he does go live with the Khans in Jersey City. But since Ms. Marvel is a Pakistani hero and it's a show about her, I kind of assumed that we're going to Pakistan at one point in time in the series. And again, this is where I think things are going to kind of start to get revealed. You see, in the comics, Kareem's mother and Kamala Khan's maternal aunt went to secondary school together. But at one point in time, Kareem lived with Kamala's grandmother in Karachi. And at this episode at the dinner table, Kamala's father said that his family had been in Karachi for generations, and Kamala's mother and her family moved to Karachi after the partition. So I'm assuming that Kamala is going to Karachi, and that's where she's going to meet Red Dagger / Kareem. And I'm assuming that he's going to give us some truth of what actually happened with Kamala's great-grandmother. Now, as I mentioned in my episode 1 breakdown, I do believe that the bangle that Kamala wears is Kree technology. And like I mentioned in the story about Star volunteered for some Kree humanoid experiments, turning people into part Kree, part human beings. I think this is something that we might actually see in this series. I think this might be what Najma is trying to accomplish, but she needs the bangle. Now, here's the thing. Najma and Kamran might actually be somewhat related to Kamala. That would make things a little weird considering that Kamala would have had a crush on her cousin, but I'm assuming they're so separated or are only related by marriage. But Najma seemed to know how to communicate with Kamala through the bangle. Through some type of cosmic energy that the bracelet emitted, Kamala had visions of Najma reaching out to her. So there is somewhat of a connection there. It may not be that they're related, but it might also be that that's the case. Also, there is a trailer for Ms. Marvel where Najma says that you've inherited greatness.
You've inherited greatness.
And this is extremely important because this means that Najma knows Kamala Khan's family history, most likely due to the fact that she's been trying to hunt this bangle down and was probably trying to get it from Kamala's great-grandmother, then her grandmother. Possibly her mother could have been involved in some way, shape, or form, but now she's trying to get it from Kamala. Also, hate to say it, but Kamran is probably bad. He might not be so bad since he's a young guy, but I'm still hoping that Kamala gets together with Bruno anyway, so I'm not too upset about it. Now, the beginning of this episode starts off with Kamala going back to school. Her confidence is through the roof since she has discovered that she has powers and saved Zoe. She corrected the teacher of what her actual name was. She's not getting hit in the face with basketballs. She's interacting with her fellow peers in a cool way, and she's even shoving people away from her locker, but not doing it in a mean way. And as she leaves, she even says that she encourages the couple and is rooting for them. Now, of course, at school, Zoe is talking about how popular she's become because she was saved by a superhero, and she's acting like she actually knows this superhero and even gives her the name Nightlight. But Kamala is watching Zoe talk about how she saved her, and she's actually kind of happy about it. Then Nakia comes and she says that Zoe is bragging about being saved by a low-budget Captain Marvel, which would typically be an insult to any other superhero. However, Kamala idolizes Captain Marvel, so she's actually really happy to be called that and even says thank you. Now, after school, Bruno wants to see Kamala's powers, and she shows them to him, but she doesn't necessarily have them under control yet, so we start a training montage. In the background, we can see a mural that is done by B Mike, and it actually has an Instagram handle that says B Mike 2C. This is an actual artist, Brandon B Mike Odoms, and his actual Instagram handle, B Mike 2C. And he also runs some really good nonprofits. You should check him out. So Kamala starts to realize that she can create this hard light and she can actually learn to step on them. She just has to learn how to make them stronger. But I think the most important thing about this training montage is that Bruno says that Kamala's power is coming from within her, not actually from the bangle. The bangle just simply awakened it. This is kind of a different play on the Terrigen Mist activating her inhuman genes inside of her. Essentially, the bangle is the Terrigen Mist. But it also makes me wonder what would happen if Bruno put it on. I wonder if he has any powers. I wouldn't be surprised if we actually see this happen later on down the road. It also makes you wonder if they're skipping the whole Inhuman story because because we're about to go into the mutant side of the MCU. But perhaps the X gene is going to be unlocked in people in a very specific way. Hopefully we find that out pretty soon in the MCU. Now Marvel just had to take us back to that scene in Avengers Endgame where Hawkeye is holding on to Natasha and she tells him to let go. We have pretty much the exact same scene here with Bruno and Kamala. She even says, "You have to let me go," much like Nat told Clint. You just had to do it, Marvel. You had to remind us of that scene again. But of course Kamala's okay and she said let go because she saw that she only had to drop like 2 feet. Now Kamala and Nakia go to their mosque, and there's some important scenes here that we'll talk about in just a bit, but the main thing to take away here is that Nakia is going to run for the mosque board. She's going to try and enact some much needed change in her mosque, and she's hoping that she can make a difference. Cut to Zoe's party where a guy goes up to Kamala and her friends and offers her some orange juice. He says that there's nothing else in it, but the second she drinks it, she realizes there's vodka in it, in which he confirms. This is almost taken directly from the comics, where Zoe's boyfriend is actually the one that gives vodka to Kamala. Now from here we meet Kamran, and we meet him as he does a double front flip off of a rooftop into the pool. He seems to have some acrobatic abilities, in which I'm assuming we're going to see later when he has to fight Kamala, or Red Dagger, or both. But the cops come, but Kamran says he has a car and everybody jumps in and they go on their way. But of course before he leaves, he gives Kamala his phone number and says that he'll take her for some driving lessons. The next day, as Bruno is dressed a lot like Marty McFly, he gets some news that he's been accepted to the early immersion program at Caltech. And that's where he's going to be spending the next semester, over there. But it's in California, and a new guy just came into Kamala's life who she seems to like, but Bruno likes her, so he doesn't want to leave. He likes her so much that he doesn't even want to go to Caltech for this summer immersion program. He does try to talk to Kamala about it, but she has a date with Kamran, so it has to wait. Now, during this date with Kamran, they go to get some food at Bombay Spice. Here they start to talk about movies where Kamran actually name drops Kingo from the Eternals. As we know from the Eternals, Kingo is a very famous Bollywood star, and he has been for many, many years. In fact, Kamran says that his mother has a crush on Kingo Sr., who of course we know is really just Kingo. He's an Eternal, so he doesn't age. So instead of simply explaining that he's an Eternal, he simply says that he comes from a long generation of movie makers and actors. But in reality, Kingo and Kingo Jr. and Kingo Sr. and any other Kingo is really just the one person, Kingo. Now at dinner at the Khan's house, we learn a very important story about Kamala's grandmother and her great-grandmother. During the partition, Kamala's grandmother and great-grandmother had to get on the last train to leave the city. But Kamala's grandmother got lost and nobody could go look for her. However, she managed to make it back to the train, and the reason that she said she was able to make it back is because she followed a trail of stars. That was Kamala's grandmother, but her mother, Kamala's great-grandmother, was never seen again. However, you heard my theory about this. I think it was Kamala's great-grandmother that used the bangle to make the trail of stars for her daughter, Kamala's grandmother, so she could make it safe back to the train and she could go deal with some dangerous people. Kamala has another vision that she doesn't understand, but she wants to learn more about her great-grandmother, so she calls her grandmother, but she refuses to tell her anything. Then Kamala the next day confronts her mother, in which she then tells Kamala that her great-grandmother brought shame to their family and she had to travel across the world to escape it. But of course this is not enough for Kamala, and she has to investigate and really figure out what happened. Let's also note that Bon Jovi is canon in the MCU now. Now the Khans and Bruno go to an Eid Mubarak festival, and again, sorry if I mispronounced that. And there, Nakia is trying to secure some votes for the mosque board. There we get introduced to a few different groups of the mosque, including the Illuminantes, which is very, very clever. They know everything and they gossip about everything, which is why Kamala says that that's going to be her duty because she wants to learn more about her great-grandmother. Fortunately for her, they have kind of information about her, and they kind of reaffirm to Kamala the things that her mom was saying. They say things like she was a snake, she had an affair, she had a secret family, she killed a person during the partition, but doesn't get any actual information about her. Now during this time, Nakia is taking down her white whale, who is actually Kamala's father, and kind of guilt trips him into voting for her, even though his best friend is running as well. However, this means a great deal to Nakia. She even has that moment in the bathroom with Kamala where she talks about how important it was when she put on her hijab. And if I had to guess, I'm guessing Nakia is going to be winning this. I'm also hoping she discovers that Kamala Khan is Nightlight / Miss Marvel pretty soon. Because meanwhile, we have the world's smartest kid about to fall to his death and Nightlight comes to the rescue. He does mention pizza ice cream, which I am kind of curious about / disgusted. I'll let you know when I try it. Yes, I am going to do it. As Kamala steps her way over on her hard light to him, she's asking him what things he likes, in which he says ice cream pizza. She asks him this to try to calm him down, and honestly not too bad of thinking considering the fact that she's a teenage superhero doing this for pretty much the first time. She manages to temporarily save him, but then the bracelet starts glowing and she has another vision. And this time it is very clearly Najma. However, we don't really know that until she picks him up in the car. But this breaks her focus, which breaks the hard light. She tries to grab him with her big extended arm, much like she would extend her limbs in the comics, but she misses. After she misses, she throws a bunch of hard light at him, which kind of acts as little steps as he falls, which eventually leads to him landing kind of okay. He mentions his ankle is hurt, but hey, he's not dead. Meanwhile, she blows up on social media, and now the DODC is looking for her. Now the DODC were holding Zoe kind of captive, and we're back with Cleary using the same old techniques that he used in Spider-Man No Way Home, using the same techniques that he used on Ned, acting really nice, and then going for the kill. He tells Zoe, oh yeah, we watch your YouTube channel, we all do, we're all big fans, but then quickly flips the switch and gets a lot of information out of her. So cut to the end of the episode with Kamala on the run, and the DODC shows up with some drones that look kind of similar to the Edith drones. Perhaps these might be Stark technology. After all, in Spider-Man No Way Home, they did confiscate the Stark technology. Who knows who's using it now, since we are going to eventually lead up to Armor Wars, which we know is about when Iron Man technology falls into the wrong hands. This could be a lead up to that. But these drones track Kamala down, and so does the DODC. But Kamala breaks one of them by punching them. She then, using hard light, manages to jump over the DODC, but they do shoot the drone and her down. This is when Kamran picks her up and we are introduced to Najma. Now I'm thinking now that the DODC is up to something. And if I had to guess, I would say that the DODC are either Kree or Skrull, specifically Cleary. After all, in Spider-Man No Way Home, Cleary knew that Nick Fury was off planet. How did he know that? What is the connection between the DODC and Nick Fury? Why does the Department of Damage Control know that Nick Fury was off planet? Well, we do know that this is eventually going to lead up to the Marvels and Secret Invasion. So I'm guessing that Cleary and the DODC is either very good and working with Nick Fury or very bad and working against him. And I'm assuming this will be revealed during the series. But let me know in the meantime what you think in the comments down below. Hit me with your best theories and let me know what you thought about Ms. Marvel Episode 2. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe so you can stay up to date on all the latest happening in the MCU. For live updates, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter. And as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.